A Sad Quest for Redemption by Rashiya Stewart, Nathan Hale School, 7th grade. There was once this troubled young boy. He never listened to any adult and ordered other kids around. This boy is Michael Caine, and he is 13 years old. He was very selfish and only cared for himself, especially during Christmas. What he did not know was that his perspective of the world would change forever that Christmas. At his school, there was this new teacher. He was a very calm and respectful teacher. That teacher would be Mr. Carlson. Michael did not like the idea of having a new teacher, and one day Michael decided to pull a prank on Mr. Carlson. He set up a huge bucket of paint over the door early before class. Michael waited for Mr. Carlson to open the door. Then it happened. Mr. Carlson was drenched in blue paint. Michael was expecting Mr. Carlson to be furious, but he was not. He just carefully walked over to his desk and started to wipe the paint off his eyes. Michael thought, "So, this one's a little tough. Let's see how much he can take," with a devilish smirk on his face. The next day, Michael set up a tripwire that traveled through the classroom. It started at the door, then ended at the power switch of a fan. It was set up so that when Mr. Carlson opened the door, the fan would flip on, a bucket of glue would fall onto him, and one more surprise, there was a bunch of feathers in front of the fan pointed at the door. One moment Mr. Carlson was clean. The next, he was standing there covered in glue and feathers. But once again, Mr. Carlson stayed completely calm and started to try and clean himself again. He then said, "Wow, Michael, that was very clever," with a warm smile. Michael gritted his teeth and said, "You cannot keep that act up forever. I will make your life a living hell and make you quit." Michael got up and walked out of the classroom, pushing past Mr. Carlson. Day after day, for weeks, the pranks never ended. They just got worser and messier each time, but Mr. Carlson's reaction was the same each time. One day, while setting up a prank on a ladder, Mr. Carlson came into the classroom unexpectedly and spooked Michael. The ladder shook and was starting to tip backwards, and luckily, Mr. Carlson was quick on his feet and caught him before he fell. The next thing you know, there was a chilling silence with quieting echoes of the ladder that fell. Also, Michael's heavy panting and shaky breaths. Michael hurriedly got out of Mr. Carlson's grasp and started to rush to the door. When he reached the door, he shot back a quick glance and mumbled a shy, "Thank you." The next day and forward, there were no pranks. Michael avoided Mr. Carlson as best as he could after that day. He would sit quietly at the back of the classroom. He would hope that Mr. Carlson would not call on him during class or try to talk about what happened. Mr. Carlson understood that and did not make a fuss about it and just let him be. But Mr. Carlson could not help but wonder what was with his sudden change in attitude. Michael could not sleep at all for the next 3 days. He would go into school completely drained. He slept through all his classes, all except Mr. Carlson's. He stayed fully awake in his classroom so Mr. Carlson would not assume anything. For some strange reason, Michael thought that his mom would like Mr. Carlson. Michael did not like talking about his mom. His mother was in the hospital with stage 2 cancer and no support from her family except for her own son. Her family was against her having a child so young, and they kicked her out on the streets. She only wanted what was best for her son and always put him first. She found a decent job and was able to find a stable house to raise her child in, but sadly fell terribly ill and was diagnosed with cancer when Michael was just 11. He figured the only way for people not to look down on him was to make them fear him. He didn't want to be known as the boy whose mom has cancer. Hale was at school, staring into space and starting to nod off to sleep, and he suddenly snapped back when he heard the classroom phone ring. Mr. Carlson looked up at Michael with sorrowful eyes and asked him to step out into the hallway to talk to him. Mr. Carlson told him gently, that he needed to visit his mom in the hospital. Though right after, he told him that everything was okay, and it was incredibly good news. Michael was too in shock to speak, but Mr. Carlson took the words in his mind and put them in words when he said, "Come on, bud, I'll drive you to the hospital." Michael flashed a shy smile and ran to the door and waited for Mr. Carlson as he told the office about the situation. Michael calmly fell asleep as Mr. Carlson's car smoothly drove to the hospital. He had not slept that well for years, as he would have bad dreams and feared being alone. He had not ever felt safe with anyone except for his mother. After a while, he started to feel guilty and terrible about all the pranks he pulled on Mr. Carlson. He sucked up his pride and said, "I'm sorry for all the pranks I have pulled on you. I shouldn't have done that." Mr. Carlson was proud of him for confessing that and saying sorry, but that was not what he said. He just simply said, "I accept your apology." Then they reached the hospital, and Michael's heart was pumping profusely. They walked into the hospital and started to check in. Michael then led them to the room, and then they walked into the room to see Rosalind standing again. She and Michael had a huge smile on their faces and rushed into each other's open arms. Rosalind then asked if it was really the Mr. Carlson she went to school with. She smiled shyly and went over to hug him as well. Michael was distraught with his mouth open. His mom then said, "Me and your teacher used to go to school together. We were close with each other." Mr. Carlson then asked if they wanted to spend Christmas together, if they did not have any plans. They were overjoyed and excitedly said yes. But before that, Mr. Carlson had asked Michael to do him a favor. Mr. Carlson had asked Michael to apologize to all the people whose feelings he hurt. Mr. Carlson asked the school to hold an assembly at the school. Michael wrote a handwritten apology and presented it to the entire school, and in the note he explained why he was so mean and hurtful, and he said his sincere apology. After that, he and his mom spent Christmas with Mr. Carlson. Michael got plenty of gifts and hugs of love from his mother. Michael was once again distraught when he found out that Mr. Carlson's real name was also Michael. After some time, Mr. Carlson and Rosalind fell in love and married. Michael dared not to say anything rude or hateful to anyone or anything else ever again. Michael even made some friends with some people.